You tell yourself that you are the captain of your own soul and the master of your own fate. You look at the people in cults, the people wearing matching robes and waiting for a spaceship, and you laugh at them. You think they are weak, or stupid, or broken. You tell yourself that you have a strong will and a high IQ, and that no amount of talking could ever make you betray your family, or rob a bank, or kill a stranger. You believe that your personality is a fortress made of stone that cannot be breached. But you are lying to yourself. You are not a fortress. You are a biological machine running on a very specific operating system, and like any operating system, you can be hacked. You can be reformatted, you can be reprogrammed. The belief that you are immune to brainwashing is the exact psychological vulnerability that a manipulator uses to break you. It is called the illusion of invulnerability. You think you are too smart to be tricked, but intelligence has nothing to do with it. In fact, smart people are often easier to brainwash because they are better at rationalizing the insanity once it takes root. We are hairless apes who think we are gods just because we learned how to use iPhones, but deep down, we are just terrified animals looking for a pack. And if I can control your environment and control your fear, I can turn you into anyone I want. I can make you love your captor. I can make you hate your mother. I can make you pick up a machine gun and fire it at the people you used to love. This is the dark science of coercive persuasion. It is not magic, it is engineering. And tonight we are going to open the manual. We are going to look at the terrified eyes of a 19-year-old heiress who went into a closet as a millionaire and came out as a revolutionary terrorist. We are going to dissect the mechanism that allows a human being to be erased and rewritten. And we are going to answer the question that you are too afraid to ask yourself. If someone put a gun to your head and locked you in the dark, how long would it take before you forgot your own name? Welcome to the anatomy of mind control. To understand how you can be brainwashed, you have to stop thinking of your personality as a solid object, like a statue. You have to start thinking of it as a scaffold. Imagine a house built on stilts on the side of a cliff. The house is your identity. It contains your memories, your values, your love for your parents, your belief in God, your favorite color. It feels permanent. It feels like home. But the house is not floating in the air. It is supported by stilts. These stilts are the external feedbacks of your reality. Stilt number 1 is your social circle, who reinforces who you are. Stilt number 2 is your physical environment, your bed, your clothes, your food. Stilt number 3 is your information flow, what you read and what you hear. Stilt number 4 is your biological rhythm when you sleep and when you eat. We think we are the house, but we are actually just the result of the stilts holding us up. Brainwashing is not about attacking the house directly. It is about kicking out the stilts, one by one, until the house collapses into the ocean. Once the old house is gone, the manipulator can build a new house on the empty lot. This is called unfreezing. It is the first stage of the psychological process defined by Kurt Lewin, and later refined by Robert J. Lifton, the man who studied the Chinese thought reform camps. The brain craves stability. It craves homeostasis. If I destroy your stability, your brain enters a state of high neuroplasticity. It becomes soft, like wet clay. It becomes desperate for a new shape just to stop the terror of being shapeless. This is why cults isolate you. They are not just being mean. They are removing the stilts. They take away your phone. They take away your family. They change your diet. They change your clothes. They change your name. They are inducing a physiological crisis that forces your brain to detach from its old reality. You are not being persuaded. You are being rebooted. And just like a computer in safe mode, you have no defense mechanisms left. This mechanism relies on a biological glitch called the adaptation syndrome. When the brain is placed under extreme stress that it cannot escape, it stops fighting. It switches from fight or flight to freeze and submit. This is evolutionary survival. If a predator has its jaws around your throat, fighting will only make it bite harder. So nature designed you to go limp, to accept the reality of the predator, to bond with the predator. This is the biological root of Stockholm Syndrome. It is not an emotional choice. It is a cellular imperative. If the only source of food and safety is the person holding the gun, your brain will chemically trick you into loving the person holding the gun because loving them increases your odds of getting fed. We think we are rational moral beings, but we are just wet robots programmed to survive at any cost, even if the cost is our soul. And the most terrifying example of this process happened in Berkeley, California, in 1974. It happened to a girl who had everything to lose and nothing to gain. A girl who was the definition of the American dream until she became the face of the American nightmare. The story begins with Patty Hearst. She was 19 years old. She was not a nobody. She was the granddaughter of William Randolph Hearst, the powerful media tycoon who was the inspiration for Citizen Kane. She was royalty. She was studying art history at Berkeley. She lived a safe, insulated life with her fiancé in a nice apartment. She was the house on the stilts, strong, secure, permanent. She had no interest in politics. She had no interest in violence. She was a normal, wealthy college student worrying about wedding plans and exams. But on the night of February 4, 1974, the stilts were kicked out. A group of armed radicals called the Symbionese Liberation Army, or SLA, kicked down her door. They beat her for yonce. They grabbed Patty. They threw her into the trunk of a car and drove away into the night. This was the trauma event, the shock that cracks the foundation. But the kidnapping was just the beginning. The real work of brainwashing happens in the quiet. They took her to a safe house and put her in a closet. A literal closet. It was small, dark, and padded with soundproofing. They blindfolded her, they tied her up, and they left her there. This is sensory deprivation. It is the fastest way to induce psychosis. Without visual or auditory input, the brain begins to hallucinate. It loses track of time. It loses track of self. For 57 days, Patty Hearst lived in a state of absolute terror. She was told that her parents didn't care about her. She was told that the FBI wanted to kill her to silence her. She was told that the only people who loved her were the people holding the guns. This is the technique known as DDD: debility, dependency, and dread. Debility is the physical weakening. They starved her. They kept her awake. They controlled her bathroom breaks. When the body is weak, the mind cannot resist. Dependency is the total control of resources. If Patty wanted water, she had to ask the SLA. If she wanted to breathe fresh air, she had to ask the SLA. She regressed to the state of an infant. The SLA became her parents. They became her gods. Dread is the constant fear of death. They told her they would execute her at any moment. This creates a state of chronic cortisol flooding that shuts down the critical thinking centers of the brain. The prefrontal cortex goes offline. The amygdala takes over. You cannot analyze logic when you are waiting to die. You can only obey. And then came the pivot. This is the moment where the manipulator offers a way out. After weeks of torture, the leader of the SLA named Sink opened the closet door. He didn't offer her freedom to go home. He offered her a choice. He said, "You can go home and be killed by the fascist FBI agents who are waiting outside, or you can join us and fight for the people." It was a false choice. It was a choice between certain death and survival. But to Patty's broken mind, it felt like mercy. It felt like salvation. The brain grabbed onto the new narrative, like a drowning man grabbing a life raft. She didn't just agree, she converted. She took the name Tonya. She put on the uniform. She picked up the gun. On April 15, 1974, just 2 months after she was a normal art student buying wedding dresses, surveillance cameras at the Hibernia Bank in San Francisco captured an image that shocked the world. It was Patty Hearst. She was holding an M1 carbine assault rifle. She was shouting orders at the hostages. She was robbing a bank. The public couldn't believe it. They said she must be faking it. She must have a gun to her back. But looking at the footage, there was no gun to her back. She looked focused. She looked committed. She looked like a soldier. When the FBI finally caught her, a year later, she didn't run to them for safety. She listed her occupation on the booking form as urban guerrilla. She threw up a clenched fist salute in the courtroom. Her lawyers tried to argue that she was brainwashed, but the jury didn't buy it. They looked at the footage and they saw a criminal. They didn't see the closet. They didn't see the terror. They didn't understand that Tonya was a survival suit that Patty had built to keep from going insane. They convicted her and sent her to prison. It took years for her to be pardoned. It took years for the psychologists to explain to the world that Patty Hearst hadn't gone bad. She had gone broken. She was the proof that you can take a billionaire heiress and turn her into a communist bank robber in 60 days if you control the environment completely enough. And if they can do it to her, they can do it to you. You are not special. You are just a house on stilts waiting for the wind to blow. The Patty Hearst case is extreme, but the mechanics of coercive persuasion are happening all around you in much subtler ways. You don't need a closet and a gun to break someone's reality. You just need isolation and repetition. Look at how modern cults operate. Look at how abusive relationships operate. Look at how certain internet subcultures operate. They all follow the recipe of totalism. This is a concept defined by Robert J. Lifton. Totalism is the demand for absolute purity and absolute alignment. It starts with milieu control. This means controlling the environment and the information. Don't talk to your family, they don't understand us. Don't watch the news, it's all fake. Don't trust anyone but the leader. Once the milieu is controlled, the brain loses its reference points. It loses the ability to reality test. If everyone around you says the sky is green, and you are the only one who thinks it is blue, eventually you will start to doubt your eyes. You will think, maybe I am crazy. And the moment you doubt your own sanity, the manipulator steps in to provide the truth. They use a technique called loading the language. They create new words and phrases that stop thought. In the SLA, they called everyone pigs, or fascists, or comrades. In corporate cults, they use buzzwords that imply you are either on the bus or off the bus. These words act as thought-terminating clichés. When you have a doubt, the cliché shuts it down. Trust the plan. Everything happens for a reason. Suppressing person. These phrases act like cognitive stop signs. They prevent you from thinking deeply about the contradictions. This is how smart people get trapped. They learn the language. They get rewarded for using the language. And soon the language starts to think for them. They are not speaking. The ideology is speaking through them. We see this today in the algorithms of social media. The algorithm is a mild form of milieu control. It feeds you only the information that reinforces your bias. It isolates you from opposing views. It loads the language with memes and slogans. It creates a digital echo chamber that acts like a soft closet. You aren't being starved of food, but you are being starved of truth. And just like Patty Hearst, you begin to identify with the captor. You begin to defend the platform that is monetizing your rage. You think you are a revolutionary fighting the power, but you are just a user generating ad revenue. The scariest part of brainwashing is that it feels good. When you finally submit, when you finally break, there is a rush of relief. The cognitive dissonance vanishes. The struggle is over. You have a new family. You have a new purpose. You have a clear enemy. The world makes sense again. This is the high of the convert. It is why people in cults look so happy in the pictures. They are high on certainty. Certainty is a drug. Ambiguity is painful. Thinking is hard. Obedience is easy. The brain loves efficiency, and nothing is more efficient than letting someone else do your thinking for you. This is why we obey tyrants. This is why we stay in bad marriages. This is why we join the mob. Because the alternative is to stand alone in the cold and think for ourselves. And as we learned from the science of ostracism, humans would rather be wrong together than right alone. So how do you fight back? How do you protect the scaffold of your identity from being kicked out? How do you keep your house from falling into the sea? You cannot rely on your intelligence. You cannot rely on your willpower. You need a protocol. You need a system that functions even when your brain is offline. You need the counter-protocol against coercive persuasion. The first step of the counter-protocol is the Totem of Reality. In the movie Inception, the characters carry a small object that tells them if they are dreaming or awake. You need a totem in real life. This is a person or a source of information that is completely outside your primary circle. If you are in a high-control group or a consuming relationship, you need one person who is not part of it. One person who will tell you the truth, even if it hurts. You must protect this connection with your life. The manipulator will try to cut it. They will say that person is toxic or that person is holding you back. That is the signal that the brainwashing has begun. Never let go of the totem. The moment you isolate yourself entirely to one source of validation, you are in the closet. You must maintain structural pluralism in your life. Have friends from different circles. Have hobbies that have nothing to do with your work or your partner. These are the extra stilts. If one gets kicked out, the house still stands. The second step is the grey rock method. If you are trapped in a situation where you cannot physically escape, yet maybe a workplace or a family dynamic, you must learn to withhold your emotional reaction. Manipulators feed on emotion. They provoke you to break you. They want you to get angry or sad or defensive because that opens you up. You must become a grey rock. Boring, unresponsive, uninteresting. You do not argue. You do not defend. You give short, non-committal answers. I see. Okay, interesting. You keep your inner world locked in a vault. This protects your core self from being mined for data. Patty Hearst broke because she engaged. She tried to reason with them. She tried to plead. You cannot reason with a predator. You can only starve them. By withholding your emotional energy, you prevent the trauma bond from forming. You keep your biology in autonomous mode rather than agentic mode. The third step is the identity anchor. You must have a secret part of yourself that nobody knows about. A secret belief, a secret memory, a secret plan. In the gulags of the Soviet Union, the prisoners who survived were often the ones who memorized poetry or played chess in their heads. They kept a tiny room in their mind that the guards could not enter. This is your sanctuary. The goal of brainwashing is confession. They want you to spill everything. They want total transparency, because transparency is submission. Do not give it to them. Keep a secret. That secret proves that you still own yourself. It is the seed from which you can regrow your personality after the trauma ends. If you give up the last secret, you give up the ghost. But here is the warning. The danger of the void. If you successfully resist the brainwashing, if you escape the cult or the relationship, you will face a terrifying emptiness. You will miss the certainty. You will miss the structure. This is why so many victims go back to their abusers. This is why cult members who leave often fall into depression or suicide. The freedom is painful. The house has been shaken, and it takes time to stabilize the stilts. You must be prepared for the grief. You must be prepared to rebuild your reality, brick by brick. Do not rush to fill the void with another ideology or another leader. Sit in the rubble, feel the wind, and start building a house that belongs only to you. The story of Patty Hearst is not just a history lesson. It is a mirror. It shows us how fragile we are. It shows us that our civilization is just a thin coat of paint over a primal animal that just wants to survive. We are all one bad week away from the closet. We are all one trauma away from becoming Tonya. The only difference between you and her is luck. You haven't met your kidnapper yet. Or maybe you have. Maybe he is on your screen right now. Maybe he is telling you who to hate. Maybe he is telling you what to think. Maybe you are already in the closet and you just haven't realized the door is locked. Wake up, check your stilts, check your doors, and never ever let them take your name. This is Mysteria. Your mind is the only property you truly own. Defend it.